Hi, I'm Madison Mary and welcome back to my channel. If this is your first time here, please don't hesitate to click that subscribe button down below. And without further ado, let's get into my June wrap up. So, ta-da! This is the first time y'all are seeing my new shelves. Don't worry, a tour and an organization and a building thing is all coming. It's all coming. It's just, I'm extremely busy, and by the time you are seeing this, I will have just completed my first week at my very first full-time official adult job. I actually had a really successful month in June, considering that I moved and it was an extremely stressful month for me and everything was just kind of going to complete and utter destruction. So, very proud of myself. I read a total of 11 books in the month of June, 2 physical books and 9 ebooks. And then I read 9 adult books and 2 YA books. So you can guess that the 2 physical books were 2 YA books, and then, you know, you get what I'm saying. And then genre-wise, I read 4 Mafia romances, 4 historical romances, 2 fantasy books, and 1 contemporary romance. And then my favorite statistic, which is my total page count for the month, and that is 3,799 pages. As per normal, we are going to start with my lowest rated read and then work up to my highest rated read. I have a huge range of books that I've read this month, star rating wise. All of them were featured in vlogs, so if you have watched all my videos, this won't be that much of a surprise to you, but if you missed out on any of them, then I'm here to recap you. So we're gonna start with my 2-star book, and you know, it's gonna be hard because I still don't know how to explain what this book is about. So that book is going to be The Waking Forest by ɪṛsᴛᴏ. It was a fever dream of a book. It was a huge mess. It was beautifully written, which is like why it was so sad that it ended up being a mess of a book, because like it was lyrical, the prose was amazing. I was tabbing it all the time as I was reading it because I was like, wow, that's a pretty description. Wow, that's a gorgeous quote. But the story itself was just a mess and a half. You're following Rhea, and she lives in a house at the edge of a woods, and she and her 2 other sisters kind of have this prophetic dream ability where they like have these dreams that are kind of always come true or like have meanings and stuff to them. Like there's like slight fantasy paranormal things going on with them. And then one night Rhea ends up meeting this mysterious stranger in her attic in the dark, and it's this boy who says that he can reveal secrets if she decides to play his game. And the other POV we're following is the witch, and she's young and she is a witch who creates wishes for young children, and the way that she grants these wishes to children is that she plucks a petal out of the rose that grows in her heart. So every night she cuts herself open, takes out a petal and gives it to a child, and then re-sews herself back up. So it is kind of gory at times, which I did appreciate. But then one day a mysterious boy arrives in her dream world and says that he can tell her stories. And so then he starts telling her these fairy tales. Basically, it's about how their 2 storylines, the witches and Rhea's, collide and interconnect, and you know, what culminates from that. And it was just really messy. I understood what the author was going for. I understood what this book was trying to do, and I get where it went and how it ended up where it did. I just thought that it was just messy. It just wasn't well executed. And also there's a romance in it that like I just didn't believe or care about. I was like, it wasn't even insta love. It just like appeared after a while, and I was like, where did this come from, sir? Like, what? I actually unhauled the book. I read it physically and I unhauled it when I moved. I was like, why would I keep a 2-star book? So that tells you that. Then we have my 2 3-star reads, the first of which is The Predator by Runix. Now this is a Mafia romance, and it just wasn't for me because the romance was lackluster. I did not understand the attraction between our characters. So we are following Miranda Vitalo and Tristan Kane in this romance. Now Miranda's family, Miranda's father is an extremely ruthless man, and she has always been under his thumb, but she is a complete and utter computer whiz. She's super smart, and one day she creates this code that ends up getting stolen and sold to the rival Mafia family, and so she's like, crap, if my dad finds this out, he will probably kill me. So I need to get this code back. So she decides to, you know, infiltrate the Tenebrae outfit. And she goes there and she, you know, is told that Tristan Kane is in possession of her code. And Tristan Kane is known as the Predator. He is the most dangerous member of the outfit. And so she is like, this is probably not my smartest idea, but I need to get this code back. So she tries to go after him and get the code from him and get the upper hand. But obviously Tristan, like, you know, stops her. And he's like, I don't know what you're talking about with the code, but whatever it is, I don't have it. You can leave right now, I will let you leave, but if you do not, then I will be forced to do things to you. And so she escapes, and then he ends up coming to her a week later with the heir to the Tenebrae outfit, and they end up saying to her, we don't have this code you were talking about, but we have heard about it, and it seems like someone is trying to frame us that we took it to cause a war between our two families, so we need to track down and see what actually happened. And so it's the three of them having to work together to figure out what happened to this code, and instantly from the beginning there is just this animosity between Mirana and Tristan. Tristan just seems to have this complete utter hatred for Mirana, and she doesn't really understand why, and so she kind of builds this animosity towards him as well, especially because he is just known for being this extremely dangerous man. And so it's this like very reluctant hate to love romance between the two of them as the story goes on. My problem is that I just didn't believe the romance in the two of them. It was just a lot of staring that they did. Like, they stared at each other all the time. And I just didn't get their connection. I didn't get where it came from. I was like, yes, you're sexually attracted to one another. I understand that, but otherwise, I don't get it. I did love Mirana. She's the main reason why I finished this book, why I did give it 3 out of 5 stars. She has so much potential. She's such a dynamic character, and there's so much to her. And in the middle of this book, she goes through a very, very, very traumatic event, and it had me in tears. I was crying for her because it was just such an emotional experience. So that's what I thought of it. I don't think I'll continue this series. It is not a standalone Mafia. It's a Mafia romance series following Tristan and Mirana. So maybe that's also a reason why I didn't like love it too much. Then we have Would Like to Meet, and this is a contemporary romance, and we're following Evie Summers. She's like 28 years old, I think, and she works as an assistant at an agency for screenwriters. And so she has been an assistant for like 7 years now, and she keeps being told by her boss that one day she'll be promoted, one day she'll make agent. And so she's constantly like waiting for that to happen. This is also set in England, by the way. And so her agency, their most prominent screenwriter is Ezra, and he's like this one-hit wonder, and they plan to make all their money off him. The only problem is that Ezra has not turned in any of his pages for his upcoming script. And so her boss is like, if you can get Ezra on board, if you can get him to submit this screenplay for these investors, I will make you an agent. And she's like, I got it, I can do that. So she goes to Ezra, and he's a complete utter asshole, such an asshole. And he's like, I can't write a rom-com. They're just unbelievable. They're below my caliber. Why would I ever do that? And she's like, if I can show you that meet cutes and rom-coms actually exist in the real world, will you write it? And he goes, yep, if you can go out, do a bunch of meet cutes and show me that something can come from that, sure, I will write you your screenplay. And she goes, done. And so she starts doing all these like really random meet cutes that you see in very popular rom-coms, one of which is, you know, spilling a drink on a stranger. And she does this in the same coffee shop twice because she keeps failing. And there's this widow and his daughter who are always at the coffee shop, who are always witnessing her do this. And one day the daughter is like, what are you doing? And she ends up striking up this friendship with this widow and his daughter, and it ends up being their romance as this book goes on. And it's extremely, extremely slow burn. And I think that's the main reason why this book was just an average like 3.5 star book, because it just took so long for the romance to get anywhere. And then there was also like a slight love triangle to do with Ezra that really aggravated me, because it was just unnecessary conflict in this book that was not needed at all. Like, I didn't get, it was just, the ending was way too over the top. And so I was just like, oh, this back third kind of ruined all the other build-up that had been happening. And so that was my big issue with it. I will say though that the widow's daughter, Annette, she is deaf, and there's a lot of representation to do with that in here, and I really loved the relationship between Evie and Annette and the bond that they formed. That was really beautiful. And also, like, Evie was just an extremely relatable character. She's 28 years old, got a lot of shit going on in her life. Her romantic life is in shambles. She's stressed out to the max. Money's an issue all the time. Like, she just has all these very ordinary problems that are all culminating into like massive disasters. And as I read this, I was going through a lot of changes myself, and I was like, I can totally relate to her. Like, I totally understand all her struggles. Like, she was just a very realistic character, so I give huge props for that. I'll definitely read more from this author. We have my 4-star books, the first of which is the only physical book I have. Oh, no, I have two. We Spin the Dawn by Elizabeth Lim. I'm so annoyed that it took me so long to get to this. I had a copy back in 2019, and 2 years later I'm finally reading it. So Spin the Dawn is Mulan meets Project Runway. So you're following Maya, and in this world, people who are tailors are only men. Only men can sew and create these amazing outfits. This is how everything is. And the emperor is currently looking for a new royal tailor, and so he is reaching out to the most famous tailor families across his kingdom, and Maya's father just so happens to be one of those men. The only problem is that her dad hasn't done anything in years. He's extremely depressed ever since his wife died, and then his 2 older sons in the war. And Maya does have one other brother left that is still alive after the war. The only problem is that he has 2 broken legs from it and can no longer walk. And so when a royal courier comes to ask for a representative from the family to be a royal tailor, Maya ends up posing as her brother. So she, does the whole Mulan thing, cuts her hair, binds her chest, all that good stuff. There's a lot more that ends up going on from there, but that is considered spoilery, so I'm not going to go further into it. But that basic explanation of what this series is about is just kind of maybe like the first third of this book, and then it takes like a total turn and does all these different things ends up happening, and it gets really magical, and there's like demonic magic in this, forbidden love, there's a morally grey sorcerer, which apparently I have found out is like my thing. I love morally grey sorcerers, and so the guy in this, who is that morally grey sorcerer, is just amazing because he's like really snarky and sarcastic and very mysterious towards Maya, and then he kind of like ends up softening towards her, and I just loved him to pieces so much. I was reading this book and I was like, wow, this is just gorgeously written. All the descriptions and everything were just beautiful. So I can't wait to read the second book in this. It is a duology, and I would highly recommend it. It wasn't like a perfect 5-star for me, but a super, super enjoyable 4-star. And we have Brutal Prince by Sophie Lark. This is an Irish mob, Italian mafia romance. And then we have Brutal Prince by Sophie Lark. This is an Italian mafia, Irish mob arranged marriage. We are following Ida and Callum. The Griffin family, the Irish mob, they rule Chicago. Yes, the Italian mafia does have a presence, but the Irish mob really rules it. After some unfortunate events, including an accidental fire and the breaking of some bones, the Irish mob and the Italian mafia decide that they need to, save face by arranging a marriage between their children. And so Callum and Ida end up being forced to marry one another. Callum is the eldest son and the heir to the Irish mob, and Ida is the only daughter of the Italian mafia family. And the two of them from the very beginning do not get along. They are complete and utter enemies. They hate one another. They do whatever it takes to, piss the other off, and it is utterly hilarious. The pranks that they start pulling on one another are completely awful, and they get so out of hand. Like, you think of how we prank people, and then there's like how the mafia pranks people. Like, she does some things that I sat there and I was rolling in bed laughing. I was like, oh my god, she went there. It was priceless. I loved watching them fall in love with one another because she really knows how to hold her ground, and she really did prove to, Callum's family, the Irish mob, that just because she's this rough and tough Italian chick doesn't mean that she doesn't actually know how to do mafia things, doesn't mean that she's not smart and has like a head on her shoulders. Like, she's more than what she appears to be, and I really love that for her. The only issue I did have with it is the fact that the sex scenes in it and the way that Callum's inner monologue went had a bit of like a degradation kink to it, and that is just not something I enjoy. I do come across it in dark romances fairly often, and it's not my cup of tea. I just don't like it when men refer to women in these degrading words. It really rubs me the wrong way from just, experiences and things like that. I don't like it. So that's the reason why it is a 4 out of 5 star, was just because I couldn't get into any of the sex scenes because of that in the beginning, because that's just the way that Callum was always referring to her. It does improve as the book goes on, so I was thankful for that. And yeah, I'm really excited to continue with the series. They have a really great cast and you became so invested in everyone. And what I really loved about this one is that it's an Italian mafia that is actually Italian. Like, too often you read an Italian mafia book and there's like hardly any Italian culture part of it. And I'm like, what is this? I'm Italian, so I just got kind of offended in the other ones. And so in this one, we actually had like full on Italian representation and like Italian words and things like that. And I was like, yes! Then we're gonna go into my 4.25 star ratings. I know my ratings are a little bit iffy this month, but the first one's going to be Bound by Honor by Cora Riley. Now this is another Italian mafia romance, but it's an arranged marriage between two different Italian mafias. It's the Italian mafia in Chicago gets arranged to the Italian mafia in New York City. Aria is the eldest daughter of the Chicago Italian mafia, and Luca is the eldest son of the New York Italian mafia. He has always been known as a very brutal man. He has a very intense and violent reputation, and so she has always been afraid of the day that she turns 18 and gets, you know, married to him. What I really appreciate about this was the fact that Aria in the beginning is very naive and passive, and then as it goes on she kind of begins to grow a backbone and starts to stand up for herself and does her own things, and I really enjoyed that. I like seeing the progression of her. I like seeing her be like, no, like I'm not just gonna stay in our room and not do anything. Like the fact that you're not letting me go out and enjoy my life is ridiculous. Like I've been in a cage my entire life under my dad in Chicago. Like I didn't just get married to you to be put in another cage. Like I'm going to do what I want to do. I want to live my life. I want to experience things. And so I really love that about the two of them. And I also just loved the morality chain with Luca, how he fell for her and how he was just like so protective. It was so great. What I didn't love is the fact that we only get Aria's POV in this. You don't get a dual POV, which really sucked. But that being said, I do know that Luca does have his own, like there's a companion to the storyline, which is fine, but I just think it would be better if the two of them were together, if we got the alternating chapters or something. I just think that we were definitely missing violence in this book. When it comes to mafia romances, I like action in them. I like to see the mafia aspects, and because you're only following Aria, you don't get to see that as much until like the very, very end, and that just wasn't enough for me, so that's why it wasn't like a full 5 stars. But I really did enjoy it. I'm so excited to continue with this series because Aria's sister Gianna had such an impact on me as I read this. I fell in love with her as a character, and I'm like, I cannot wait for her romance. I'm pretty sure she's book 3, so I need to catch up on that. Then the next 4 books are all part of the same series. They all have different star ratings, but they were all just in the vlog that came out on Tuesday of this week, so a couple of days ago. And so Lisa Kleypas's Wallflower series, there are 6 books in it, but I only read 4 of them during June. The other 2 I read at the beginning of July. They're all included in the vlog, but you know, that's just how it is. So the Wallflower series follows 4 women, and there is a prequel novel and then also a Christmas novella that takes place out the series. I do want to say, do start with the prequel novel because I just think that it's more fun to have that read first because you get to see a little bit of build up for all the different characters that are going to come later on. The Wallflower series follows 4 women who are wallflowers, and wallflowers in historical romances are basically, you know, women who are during their season who never get asked to dance, who are always just sitting on the sidelines waiting with empty dance cards, and you know, no one ever asks them out, and so they just sit there. And so there are these 4 women who have been wallflowers for a couple of seasons now, and they end up bonding over that and creating a pact that they're going to help one another find a husband. And they're going to start with the eldest and work their way down to the youngest so that everyone gets their happy ending. And the 4 women are Annabelle, Lillian, Evie, and Daisy. So Annabelle is the eldest. She is a prim and proper English lady. The only problem is that she has no dowry. And the 2nd and 4th book follow Lillian and Daisy, and they are sisters who are American heiresses. And they couldn't find a husband in the United States, so their parents sent them to find a husband in England and join the peerage so that they could gain a title and be like ladies, because they're like, we have so much money, just find a duke or a lord or someone who has no money and needs money and just marry them. And so that is why they are there. The only problem is that Lillian and Daisy, as Americans, don't have any of the typical conventions that Englishmen are looking for. They're extremely improper. They don't follow any of the rules. They're very boisterous and loud and rambunctious, and so none of the men want to marry them despite their money because they're like, why would we ever take on women like this? So the second book is Lillian's, who is the eldest daughter, and the fourth book is Daisy, who is youngest daughter. And then the third book follows Evie. She has a stutter. She is very shy around people. She cannot speak to anyone. She just gets very nervous all the time because she ended up being raised by her mother's family, who was extremely abusive towards her. And they're mentally, physically, and emotionally abusive. And so she's grown up in that sort of a household. And so she's a wallflower because she really can't interact with people. She's so terrified, and her family literally keeps her like under lock and key all the time. Those are the 4 books. I read the first book, Secrets of a Summer Night, 4 stars. I read the second book, It Happened One Autumn, 4.25 stars. I rated the third book, Devil in Winter, 5 whole stars. And then I rated the fourth book, Scandal in Spring, 4.5 stars. So I really did enjoy this series. It was just so enjoyable. I do recommend reading everything in order. If you look at my vlog, you'll see my full experiences. There's no spoilers in that vlog. I highly recommend you read it because you're gonna get me crying in it. I do cry in that vlog, so check it out. And then the last book is my last 5-star read, and that is, oh, actually I own this book. ɪᴏ by Sophie Lark. I have a physical copy. Previously, this didn't have physical versions. It was only available on Kindle Unlimited, but then last week, Sophie Lark was like, surprise, my Underworld series is now available in paperback, and I was like, buy instantly. So it takes place in St. Petersburg, Russia, and we are following Sloane, and she is an American hit woman. She is extremely successful at what she does, and what ends up happening is she gets hired to take out this really prominent Bratva boss, ɪᴏ. And initially she's like, oh, I don't know if this is a great idea, like this is quite dangerous to try and take out like a Bratva member, like let alone a boss. But the payday is like massive. So she's like, you know what, screw it, I'll do it, I bet I can. And so she ends up getting all the way, infiltrating, about to murder him, and then he wakes up and ends up capturing her. And so it's a captive romance. I freaking adored the shit out of this book, okay? It was action-packed from the beginning. Both our characters are brutal and can hold their own. It is true Mafia in the fact that you see all the awful things that they do. And, I just loved the immense sexual attraction between ɪᴏ and Sloane. Like, from the beginning, he has taken her captive, but he is like so attracted to her, and then like as they have this raw chemistry with one another, they also have this wicked banter. Like Sloane knows how to hold herself, and she teases the crap out of ɪᴏ, and I was like laughing my ass off. I bought this physically because I will reread this book. Like, and I don't say that, like, I don't reread books often, and the fact that I was like, I would reread this says so much about how amazing this is. So like, if you do want to try Mafia romances, I highly recommend you start here because it has like everything amazing in it. So I can't wait. Look, it says in the back, she tried to kill me. I really want to continue with the Underworld series. There's like a bunch of different books in it, and apparently the characters in this series, bleed into other series. All of Sophie Lark's Mafia romances tend to interconnect in some way. So I cannot wait. I loved it. And yeah, that is the end of my June wrap up. I hope you did enjoy this video. If you did, please hit that button down below. If you want to see more of me, please subscribe to my channel. And until next time, thanks a bunch everyone. Bye bye.